You're listening to a DM podcast.
Now, I know you're not supposed to move, but it was like 35 degrees outside, super hot. I had no bandage. So all I did is I took a pool towel and I tied it on my leg above the knee as hard as I possibly could. And I literally hobbled on just one leg with the other one tied up for like 100 meters till I got to the restaurant. Everyone's looking at me like I'm a, total weirdo. So I get to the restaurant. I lay down immediately because I knew I wasn't supposed to move. And I just yelled, "Help, I've been bit by a brown snake."
104.93, understood, thank you.
Hi, my name is Lana Mitchell from the Royal Flying Doctor Service. This is a podcast about life in the bush, mateship, courage, and the role that the Royal Flying Doctor Service plays in serving rural and remote communities. This is the Flying Doctor Podcast.
My name is Sophie Campbell and I'm a communications assistant with the Royal Flying Doctor Service. The stories we share each week through the Flying Doctor Podcast come from all around and from all across Australia. And the RFDS acknowledges and pays respects to the traditional owners of the lands on which we work, and we recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and the community.
Edward and his wife Carmen and their daughter Vienna live in Melbourne, but were on a trip of a lifetime to Uluru in the Northern Territory. It was Easter, and it was Edward's and Carmen's birthday, within a week of each other, and they were there to celebrate. But things took an unexpected turn on their dream holiday, and Edward is here to tell us what happened. Hello, Edward.
Hi, Lana. Nice to meet you.
Lovely to meet you too. Do you go by Edward or Eddie or...
Eddie's fine. Perfect.
Eddie's fine. Okay, great. Edward seems a little formal to me. Okay, great. So, Eddie, you're from the US originally. How long have you been in Australia?
I am. I've been in Australia for 5 years now, a little over 3. I think when the event happened, we moved in 2019 of September, just before COVID.
Yeah.
So I met my wife originally from Virginia, but lived in New York City the last 10 years and in the States. And I met my wife in 2014 on Valentine's Day. And she said, "Don't fall in love with me. I'm going back to Australia in 6 months." Got 8 years out of it extra. And then we moved to Melbourne to start a family, and we have one beautiful daughter here. And been in Australia for 5 glorious years now.
So is it difficult? I ask this just because I spent quite a bit of my time in younger years overseas in the US. Do you find it difficult being so far away from your extended family?
Look, I think it would have been different 10, 15 years ago. And, I talk to my family a lot about this. I think given the digital age we have, and certainly in the COVID years, as the world just moved more and more virtual, the ability to obviously Facebook to share images with them. We FaceTime them video with our daughter all the time. And we do get over there once a year and try and get them to come here every 2 years. That it's I think it's far easier than it used to be in terms of that. And I'm a man. I'm a boy. We're not as, my wife comes from a big Greek family, very close. And I find the girls tend to be a lot closer. Boys, we're terrible. We're just like once a week a text. So yeah, my family, I know it's a bit hard on them and they're very brave, but yes, we get to speak to each other quite often. So.
Right. And are you an Australian citizen now?
Not yet. I technically, starting in September, I could have qualified for it. So I'm going to start it this year. I just missed it. So I will be next year. But a PR. I do have my PR.
Okay. And so what do you do for work, Eddie?
So right now I actually work for it's a med tech company in the pharmaceutical space, supporting pharmacies. And I work in their marketing department, helping set up their marketing and partnerships.
Oh, all right. So, and Vienna, your young daughter, how old is she now?
She's 4 now. So,
okay. All right. So she's
beautiful.
Just a year off heading to school shortly.
That's right. That the stress is that's actually more stressful than the snake bite, I think.
Really?
Oh yes.
No,
Where she goes to school.
School's a wonderful thing. No, you'll love it.
I'm very excited.
So tell me, what led up to the two of you as a couple taking your young daughter on a holiday to Uluru? Like what was it that led up to that moment?
Yeah, it was our birthday. We love to travel. Obviously, I think at that point we had been out of lockdown for a couple months now. So Uluru was always top of bucket list in Australia. Very much a trip of the lifetime. So we had booked it for a while, and Easter weekend lined up with my birthday and my wife's. So yeah, we flew out, landed on my birthday, and we're just looking forward to being in the beautiful outback desert and do some
Mm.
hiking and just relaxing by the pool.
Well, I mean, the COVID period in Victoria, particularly in Melbourne, was really severe with everybody being in lockdown for a really extended period. So were you a bit stir crazy from being not able to move around?
Look, I wasn't as bad because when we had our daughter during it, and it was much tougher for my wife being a first time mother, being
Mm.
isolated, everything like that. For me, I looked at it as particularly the first 6 months of a baby's life. You're kind of in lockdown anyways, as I like to tell people. You know they have no immune system, they're not sleeping, so other than obviously the grandparents being around, that was a bit tough. I found a lot was different, but yes, at this point it had been a year and a half in lockdown. It just yes, very much stir crazy and very much ready for some new adventures.
Right.
Not knowing what adventures those would be.
Well, that backdrop, I think, certainly gives a flavour to your Uluru visit. Can you tell me a little bit about the resort where you went to?
Sure. So it's called Sails in the Desert. Beautiful resort in the downtown of Uluru. Really nice, great pool, great service, great rooms. Yeah, like 5 star. We were looking forward to it, and yeah, the last place you would expect to bump into a brown snake. So.
Right, right. Okay. Now, are you similar to other Americans? And I'm going to generalize here, but are you similar to other Americans? Have you like devoured Discovery Channel and all about the dangerous, deadly creatures of Australia? And
Oh,
because I had a friend here once who just, couldn't even walk in the grass anywhere without saying, there's going to be a snake. I was like, gosh, you're a bit over the top. He goes, oh, Discovery Channel. Like you've just been so over overwarned, I guess. So is that the same with you? Have you sort of been really immersed in our dangerous creatures?
You have no idea. It's not just that. It's like my grandmother's so terrified of snakes because she got almost bit by a rattlesnake when she was like 3 in America. My mom
Yeah.
was terrified of snakes. So like both of them raising me, it was anytime there's a snake on TV, they had to turn it off. So it was like it's just like ingrained fear from when I was young of snakes. And for some reason, my wife likes to call me the Pied Piper of snakes. Like I've seen 17 snakes since I've been here in 5 years, and most Australians have never seen any. I went hiking once and I saw like 10 in the course of 2 days. I literally saw a red belly just the other week in our backyard. It's like for
Right.
some reason they just follow me everywhere.
It
No,
could be that, or it could be that you're just observing them and have
exactly.
your eyes open and you're seeing them because they are everywhere.
They
It's
are
just
everywhere.
you have to just be watching for them. So
Y-
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Look, I love bushwalking, so or hiking as we call it in America. I used to go all the time. It's different. Always told people like I'd rather deal with bears than snakes because at least with a bear you can see it from like 500 meters away. You can hear it. The big thing with snakes is like they just and it's not their fault, but especially little ones, you can stumble on them without even knowing. And I think that
Yeah.
was always it was less the fear of them, more the like just not knowing where they are and very easily being able to have an accident. So,
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So tell me about your holiday. Would you mind walking me through it? How did it start? You arrived there. Was it relief to be in a hot and red dirt environment? Were you, yeah, explain to me what
yeah,
happened.
absolutely. We flew out on my birthday. It was the Friday before Easter. So excited. Me in particular, I have quite an adventurous streak in me. So really excited to just be in the desert. I always call desert like the spiritual happy place. There's the desert sunsets. First day was just incredible. We got a bit of pool time. We did a dinner under the star candlelight and stars, like a traditional Aboriginal dinner. It was just lovely, incredible first day, and seeing Uluru for the first time is pretty surreal. It's just a rock in the desert, and you think how special can a rock in a desert be? But it's pretty,
It
especially
is.
I think given just how flat and the nothingness there, and then just this gorgeous rock there. It was a very special day. So then the next day, just trotting around the hotel. It was around 2 o'clock, and it was pool time. So, it was at 30 degrees, time to hit the pool. I'm very impatient. My wife likes to tell me I live in a New York minute, and she always says this is God's way of teaching me what happens. So she's taking forever to get to the pool, as she always does. I'm like, all right, I'll just see you there. So I have nothing but my swimsuit, my thongs on. I have my daughter who's 2 at the time, and I'm like, we're just gonna go to the pool. So we take us like 5 steps out of the door. I remember it like I'm going down the hallway, and it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. By the 5th step, I feel something go up my legs. Now I've hiked and bushwalked my whole life. It felt like I thought it was just a piece of like grass or something random, but it felt
Yeah.
a little squiggly. So I'm looking down, and as I'm moving my foot up, a baby brown snake, maybe 4 or 5 inches, I'm not sure how many centimeters, but just a small brown snake goes flying off of my leg. So, and then it like lands and it looks at me. I look at it. It looks at me. I look at it, and then like it just took off. And I was like, oh, I just kicked a brown snake. What are you kidding me right now? So I'm looking at my leg. I can't see anything. I can't feel anything. I just go like right back to the room, and I'm going, Carmen, you're not going to believe this. I just kicked a baby brown snake. And she's like, what? No, you're making, I'm dead serious. It was a brown snake. It had it had the black stripe on the, we're Googling, and I'm like, it was definitely a brown snake. So we're checking my leg, and no bites, nothing. It looks good to go. I just go, I'm the luckiest man in the world, knock on wood. So, of course, like my daughter's 2, she doesn't understand the concept of like, danger and stuff. She's just like, why aren't we at the pool yet, guys? Let's go to the pool.
Yeah. What is this distraction?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get back on track, people. So we get to the pool. Yeah. Look, I actually think it was probably in my mind, but we're sitting at the pool, and all of a sudden I just feel the very slightest tingling and itchiness in the area. And I look down and on my shin, and I see a snake fight on it. It took like 10 minutes to pop up, which you're not supposed to walk or anything. And I just remember going to my wife and I go, Carmen, he got me. That's all I said. So it's like 35 degrees at this point. They want to play in the water. I'm thinking, like, once again, trained my whole life for this moment, because all I've done as an American is research what to do in a snake bite. Now, I know you're not supposed to move, but it was like 35 degrees outside, super hot. I had no bandage. So all I did is I took a pool towel and I tied it on my leg above the knee as hard as I possibly could. And I literally hobbled on just one leg with the other one tied up for like 100 meters till I got to the restaurant. Everyone's looking at me like I'm a, total weirdo. So I get to the restaurant. I lay down immediately because I knew I wasn't supposed to move. And I just yelled, help, I've been bit by a brown snake. Well, then the whole restaurant panics because everyone thinks there's a brown snake in the restaurant. People are grabbing their kids. People are screaming. I'm like, no. It was in the hallway. It was outside my room. So there was a lady named Jules who came, and I'll never forget her. She must have been a nurse or something. Like, she immediately hopped in. She was just staying there as a guest, but she immediately knew what to do. So she's telling, the staff to get this, get that. Where's the first aid kit? They wrap me up. They call the local clinic to come get me. And, they come get me very quickly, like within, I want to say 15 minutes. So they take me to the local clinic. It's like a 30-second ambulance ride. At this point, I have no idea what's going on or how the process works. I'm thinking I'm just going to get anti-venom at the clinic. And they tell me, no, we're just nurses. We don't actually, like, this is an outback town. We don't have doctors here. We have to get the Royal Flying Doctor Service to come get you and take you to Alice Springs. So I knew about the RFDS. Everyone in Australia talks about them. What you and the team do, you're absolute heroes. So I was familiar with the service. I was thinking, okay, wow. But also they said, like, this could take quite some time because the RFDS was stuck in Tennant Creek on another job. So I had to wait actually about 4 to 7 hours for them to obviously drop off someone else and come and get me. That was a bit scary when I heard I had to wait, because I'm thinking, oh no, how does this venom work? Am I, what's going to happen?
How were you feeling at the time, physically?
Well, that's the thing. I felt fine. So, and that's what never really scared me. So about like 4 hours in, actually, I had no symptoms. So, and I even said to the nurse, I was saying, can I go home? Like, clearly it was a dry bite. Like, there's nothing wrong with me. And she's just like, outback nurse. She's like, nah, mate. Like, the baby browns, they're super dangerous. And, the thing with brown snakes is it's not like America, because with American venom, I think it's cytotoxic, which basically means like it eats away at your skin. She was like, with brown snakes, you won't even know the venom's in there until we remove the like bandage, and then it goes straight to your heart and kills you. So I'm like, oh, great. Awesome. All right. Good to know. Thanks. I guess we'll just stay here
I'll
and
just
wait.
stay here and try not to move.
Yeah.
You
So
do
my
know
daughter's
that juvenile snakes can't control their venom. Did you know that?
Yeah, there was a dodge there that she compared to a teenage boy, which I won't use in a forum like this. Yes,
Right.
very aware. The lady was very funny and a good laugh. So during that moment, my wife came, obviously, like she tells it from her perspective. I'm in the hospital and she's like at the pool crying to herself with the kid, like, because
My
my daughter's
husband's going to die. He's
dying.
been
Yeah,
bitten by a snake. And you're, meanwhile, lying in the clinic going, anybody got a cup of tea?
yeah, I really have to pee. What do I do? You can't move. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. So, and then my daughter's obviously coming to visit, and she's just causing more problems than she's helping. Because she doesn't understand the concept. She just wants to play with me and like jump on daddy. And the doctors are like, the nurse is like, you can't move. I'm like, well, she's a 2-year-old. Like, I got to do something. So look, my wife says it from her end. Like, she was obviously very panicked at first, but by the third time she came and visited me and nothing happened, we felt a lot better. But we did realize like everything was precautionary, so let's just follow the steps in place. So it was like 6:30. The RFDS finally came, and they were able to get me. And I remember they picked me up at saying goodbye to the family was tough because I didn't know, what was going to happen. And they were just amazing, literally from beginning to end. They just made myself feel comfortable, my wife feel comfortable. They really were angels. I mean, there's no other way to describe them. And
Had you ever been on a plane of that size before?
not that's, yeah, possibly in America. I've been on some small planes before, but obviously they're fitting 20 people. It was insane. ABC, when I did the interview there, asked me what it was like, and I said it's like being on an operating room with wings. It's incredible the setup they have in such a small confined space. It really
Yeah,
is.
it's like a little intensive care unit. Yeah.
It is.
So were you able to take Carmen and your daughter with you, or were you sent off by yourself?
I was sent off by myself. So they picked me up and flew me, and I remember it was sunset, like seeing the sunset over Uluru, and I was thinking, oh well, if this is my last sunset, it's not a bad one. But the nurse who basically escorting me on the RFDS, she held my hand, like they made sure I was as comfortable as possible the entire time. And that was really clear. And, that everything was okay. Everything was normal. I just remember a complete sense of calm being around them. The only thing that happened was obviously what happens to everything when you go up in a plane: compression. Everything expands and contracts. So the snake bite never gave me a problem, but being, 10, 20,000 feet in the air with a compression bandage, it started to hurt really, really bad, especially after being on for 7 hours. And my leg was going like it was immense pain, just as everything swelled. And they did give me some painkillers while I was there that just helped. So they flew me to Alice. I got to hang out in the hangar in Alice, and the whole time the nurse was with me just to make sure that I was like okay and felt comfortable and safe until the ambulance came and got me and took me to the Alice Springs hospital. So I get to the hospital, and obviously it's like I can't remember what it was, but it was like code black, and there's like 7 nurses and doctors there escorting me, making sure I'm okay. And obviously they're getting everything set up, ready, and they get ready to remove the bandage, which is like basically like do or die moment. Like, is this going to? They have everything ready just in case it goes the other way, and they remove the bandage and thankfully, like nothing happened at all. So I'm sitting there for like 4 hours, 5 hours go by. I'm going, hey guys, at this point, it's been 12 hours. I still don't have symptoms. I couldn't sleep because it's an ER room. I said, I just want to get back to my family. And they actually let me go early. Well, the thing with the RFDS, and I don't know why I didn't piece this together because it makes complete sense. It's not a commercial airline, so they take
No.
you to your destination, but you have to get back. And I'm like, oh yeah, that
Yeah,
actually
they do sometimes repatriate people, but it's only if they have the capacity and they only have the resource and the time and they're going that way anyway. But otherwise, it's up to the patient to make his way back to wherever he came from.
100%. So I was like, okay, at 4 a.m. I got to figure out how I'm going to get back. So there's no flights from Uluru to Alice. I was actually shocked. You basically have to go either back to Melbourne or to Adelaide and then to Uluru. Car rentals are only are round trip, so I couldn't rent a car. So the only thing I could do is I had to take a tour bus back to my family from Alice Springs. So I booked like a tour bus. They let me go at 5 a.m. and I'm walking the streets of Alice Springs in pitch black. I'm using my phone's flashlight to make sure I don't see another, step on another snake and end up back.
Wouldn't that be terrible?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So you're
I-
walking through Alice and you're trying to make your way to the bus stop? Is that what you're
trying to
do?
find it. I can't find it. And because it's a tour bus, it's like they pick you up at hotels. So I'm trying to find this hotel. So I see a gentleman on a bike coming my way. And he's like, what are you doing walking around Alice at 5 a.m.? Like, I said, dude, can you help me? I just got to find this bus. I haven't slept all night. I'm exhausted. I've been away from my family for like almost 24 hours. I just want to get back to them. You're just not going to believe what's going to happen. I got bit by a brown snake, and long story short, I'm just getting back to Alice. He goes, what? I said, yeah, I got bit by a brown snake. And then he pulls out of his jacket, he pulls out a recorder and he goes, I'm an ABC reporter. Would you mind if I did a story on this?
Perfect opportunist. There you go. There's a journo for you.
Yeah, I was like,
Seize the
absolutely, come
moment.
walk with me. So I tell him the whole story. I get on the tour bus. It's a 7-hour tour bus. We're stopping at camel farms. We're stopping at roadhouses. I'm like, I don't care about these camels. I don't care about like this famous roadhouse. I just want to get to my family. They haven't seen me. So we finally I get back, lots of tears, lots of cuddles, everything like that. And we go to get a burger and a beer. Of course, Sales on the Desert comped it. They were like, it's on us for the snake incident.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
We shouldn't make that too well known because people will be
everyone
going there and
will
saying,
wanna
I've been bitten by a snake.
100%. So I remember like sitting there and I go, man, I can't believe that happened. What a crazy 24 hours. So as I'm doing that, I'm looking at my leg. I'm realizing there's an even bigger bite on the calf of my leg, which everyone missed because obviously we all looked at the front and they just wrapped it the whole time and they didn't want to unwrap it. So it didn't only bite me once, it actually bit me twice. It's just go, man, I'm lucky. I got bit twice. And a wild story.
So did the doctors determine in the end it was two dry bites, or do they think that there was any poison that actually ended up in you? Any venom?
They determined it was 2 dry bites. And this is what I tell. So obviously this story circulated amongst friends and families. And for some reason it got some traction in America as well. So believe it or not,
it's because it's an Australian snake story. That's like
bit by an American, of course.
Yeah.
So I had a couple friends who were like, this guy told me about this story. How did he hear about it? And everyone asks. So the stereotype about the Australian snakes is they're the most venomous, which is all true in this. But the big thing I learned from this moment as well was, if you're going to get bit in a country, believe it or not, Australia is like one of the best countries to be bit by. And there's multiple reasons. Our incredible healthcare system, we're well prepared for it. But B, in terms of the types of snakes and the venom, while yes, the lethal dose, it's very strong, the way it interacts with the body. And because it's such a dry, harsh place, one thing I learned from this is, snakes don't want to waste their venom because it takes days if not months to repair. So
unless they're a juvenile and they have no control. So,
of course, it was a juvenile, but it was something like 90% of brown snake bites are actually dry bites. So, it's the stereotypes don't always match reality.
Or maybe nothing gets in the way of a good story.
Of course, 100%.
Facts don't have to be part of it, as long as you have a good story. And I think that's why was talking about my American friend and how, you know, in his head, he'd seen so much on the Discovery Channel and, you know, National Geographic and all this sort of stuff about, you know, the deadly, dangerous snakes of Australia and how they will kill you in one bite. And when you actually look at, you know, what actually happens, it's just not quite that way.
100%, 100%. It's always like top dead death, you know, in seconds.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. It's always it makes a good story. That's for sure.
100%, 100%.
So, did it change your perspective on life at all in terms of being in that? For there was a period there, a number of hours, where you weren't quite sure what was going to happen. Did it change your perspective on life?
Yeah, it's interesting in that moment. So, yeah, I tend to get anxious about a lot, like pretty panicky and anxious, but also like full transparency. My wife and I we're pretty spiritual people. You know, I try and like do my Bible verses every day, and there's an element of like faith in our family that's just really important, and it's more for like moments like this. There's so much in life that's unknown, and for chance and everything like that. And something I look back on that moment is I found like that's when your real faith is tested, right? When
Right.
how do you respond to life changing moments? And the thing that shocked me, I mean, obviously, this is one of my biggest fears in life coming to fruition. There's no doubt about it. This was something I thought about constantly. But in that moment, the thing that sticks with me most was there was just an immense sense of calmness the whole time.
Mm.
And like, actually, I really wasn't panicked during it. I mean, I always knew no matter what situation, like any stressful situation is the best thing you can do, stay calm. But also there was just an element of, I'm out of control in this situation. This is when your faith gets tested. Like, do I believe in God? Do I not believe in God? Am I going to like trust this plan? And I will say it was a faith test, and it was just a complete trust the whole time. Whereas I was shocked. I thought I was going to be really, you know, scared and panicked. And, you know, I just try to make light of it and have a good time and say, you know, what happens has happened. You know, how many people are lucky enough to even go to Uluru? So if this is how it goes, this is it. But
So it was so for you, it was quite reaffirming in terms of your spiritual beliefs and so forth.
100%.
It was grounding, and for you, it sort of shows that your faith is accurate and assisting you in life. Is that right?
Yeah, and then the big thing to your point in terms of how it's changed is just I think I said this to ABC when I interviewed with them. Like your biggest fears a lot of times in life, they're just in your head, right? They don't match reality. And I think from it was just like to live less fearful of the future, you know, less fearful of the things that aren't in your control, and just enjoy every single moment, because it could always be your last, right? We have no control in terms of you eat healthy and you live right, but at the end of the day, things happen that are just outside of your control. So there's without a doubt, there's been immense change in my life in terms of just like not sweating the small stuff. And I still fail at that every day. There's things I sweat, but then I remind myself like I survived my biggest fear. What am I panicking about?
You're a cagey jellyfish.
Exactly. Yeah. Jellyfish next.
There'll be something that's worse than that.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Do you have any advice for others that are travelling in rural and remote Australia?
Not rural remote Australia. When you're at a hotel, just look down. It's not that hard. So, you know, and that's I remember I got back to Uluru, and the very next day I said, I'm walking Uluru. Like I came all this way to walk the full 10Ks. And I walked it full 10Ks around Uluru by myself, didn't see one snake. So it's just, you know, that's the thing. I think when you're out in the wilderness, they have a lot of places to run towards. When
Yeah.
you're, you know, it's just always look down, and don't stress the small stuff. You have great services like RFDS, who's always going to be there to help out, or some great healthcare, and you're in the best country in the world to be bit. So don't freak out about it.
If you're going to be bitten, get bitten here.
Exactly. Nowhere else.
I'll tell you a little story, Eddie. Years and years ago, I was in Southern California, and I was walking along a path with a friend. And having grown up in Australia, sort of, there's always this constant scanning that happens with your eyes, constantly scanning and just watching. And as we were walking along, I realised there was this massive tarantula. It was huge. It hairy and massive. It was about the size of my hand. And it was walking along, and I reckon I launched easily 3 or 4 feet into the air. So I think all countries have their nemesis, and they all have their, creepy crawlies or their things that come out in the dark or whatever that freak you out. Certainly for me, a snake doesn't scare me in any way, but a tarantula, oh my God, just, not my thing. Whereas I think a lot of Americans, they hear a rattle, they move away, they don't freak out necessarily. It's
And I
about
don't want to get too
familiarity, isn't it?
Yeah, and I don't want to get too political here, but the school shootings in America and stuff like that. And I went to Jordan over Christmas because I always wanted to see Petra. It was, I booked it last January when the Middle East was at like a 50-year peace. And then obviously October 7th came, and it was just constantly, do I go? Do I not go? Do I go? Do I not go? And while I was there on New Year's Eve, we actually had a Houthi missile land. Like the Australia, US, everyone said it was safe to go, just experience caution. And while I was in Jordan, even though you're only 5Ks from the Israel border, I felt very safe the whole time. Like they invested so much in tourism and like safety, and they get so much money from the government. But New Year's Eve, we actually had a missile launch, like land 2Ks outside of our camp. So, and I remember
changes your view, doesn't it?
That was far scarier than the snake. That was like being on my own in the Middle East. That like changed my view completely. And speaking to the locals there, this is just how they live day in and day out. They're not involved in this war, but because they're next door, they have to live with missiles landing in their backyards and stuff. What are we worried about with brown snakes? And you have the
a little bit of diligence, and you can avoid a brown snake, but you can't avoid a bomb or a missile. That's very true.
100%.
I was in Israel in 2010. And was really surprised to see these large cement structures everywhere. And I thought naively that they were some sort of storage containers or something. And I asked my host, and he said, oh, they're bomb shelters. And I suddenly realized that you'd have a bus stop and then a bomb shelter, a soccer field, a bomb shelter, a school, a bomb shelter. And I thought, my gosh, we're so lucky to live in a country where we're not surrounded by that constant reminder that at any point you could hear sirens going off. We're so, so lucky to not have that. So yes, when you put it in that perspective, then a brown snake is really not that big a deal.
Also, I'm Australian now, so it's like, no worries, she'll be right. That's the attitude that I have.
She'll be right. Yeah,
I'm an Aussie now. It's like, it's just a brown snake. They're harmless. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So next year, I presume your wonderful Vienna will be starting kindy or starting her adventures in the school.
Yes, she's very excited, and she loves telling the snake story all the time as well. She's always drawing snakes and is like, "Daddy, this is the snake that bit you." To everybody.
That's great.
Very
That's
blessed.
great. Well, she will have learned something from that experience too. Yeah.
She's awesome. So she's fearless as well. Doesn't, she sees snakes and doesn't get scared of them, but knows to, respect them and, enjoys seeing them and seeing them pass. Just don't go near me.
Are you planning another trip to the Outback at any point?
Not at this point. We did Great Barrier Reef. I'd love to get out to Western Australia next, I think. Do Ningaloo. See the desert hit the water.
You got to do that in the springtime when all the wildflowers are out.
Yeah, and I think they have the whales around that time, the whale sharks as well. So, no trips for. We'll do Greece. We're gonna do Europe. Far less dangerous. So maybe just do Europe this year. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that sounds wonderful. Thank you so much for telling us what happened. Glad everything turned out okay, and I'm glad you're not, permanently freaked out about snakes moving forward.
No, thank you. And thank you to the RFDS. Honestly, the service is just, I can't describe how great the experience was considering the circumstances. My grandmother, who's been in healthcare her entire life, she's actually obsessed with the RFDS TV show. She watches it in America nonstop.
That's great.
And she just thinks she tells me all the time, having lived in America her whole life and spending many years in healthcare, she wished there was a service like that in the US. It's just and then the biggest thing that shocked me, and this for all the listeners here, is at the end of this, I got my bill and it was $0. And that's an incredible experience. So you donate. That's all I can say, because you never know who you're going to be helping on the other side.
Oh, thanks so much, Eddie. That's great. Well, listen, wishing you and the family a lovely Christmas. Thank you so much for chatting today.
Thank you, Lana. You do the same.
Thanks for listening. Word of mouth is always the best promotion for a podcast. So if you enjoy this podcast or a specific story, please share with family and friends. If you haven't already, join our Facebook group called the Flying Doctor Podcast Community. And you can also send feedback, questions or comments to me directly at mitchell@rfds.org.au. Donations to support the Royal Flying Doctor Service can always be made through our website at flyingdoctor.org.au.